Hello, 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 hello. Hello, Sally, Kinney, Chris, Keith, JF. Good to see you all. Good to see you all. I'm glad you're still there because I pressed, typical of me, pressed the wrong button just as it came 3:30. So I disappeared for a moment and here I am. Right, excellent. Good to see you all. Tom, nice to see you. You made it. Excellent. So, good to see you, regulars, and Sally was very early. Steve, hello. Barbara V, that's nice. Yes, no, of course, I'm in competition, direct competition with our esteemed leader. Hello, Laura, nice to see you, Laura C. Boris Johnson, 3:30 today, making announcements about the latest COVID-19 action here in the UK. I don't know why I find that funny. It is what it is. It will be what it will be. And doubtless the admin that they'll be putting in place will be as confusing as ever. So he's my direct competition at the moment, but we'll be talking about something far more interesting. We may well come back round to COVID-19 later on. Who knows? We usually do cover it at some stage during this hour or so. But we're going to be talking about spiraling Earth energy, dowsing, and the implications for reality, for our awareness. So we'll look at that in a sec. One of the things I just wanted to touch on as a bit of admin is obviously regulars. Nick, hello. Good to see you. Nice cheesy smiley face there, that's nice. You regulars will know that this is the live, so this is meandering chit chat for the next hour or so, and we're basing it today around the spiraling Earth energy, dowsing, and implications for awareness. I will always try and get an edited highlights done so that I cut out all of the hellos. David and Nancy, hello, nice to see you both. So all of those distractions will be cut out of the highlights, and if there's something that you want to particularly pick up on, have a look in the playlist for edited highlights. Surprise, surprise, live Q&A edited highlights, that's where that one goes. Usually those edits are done about a week or so after the live. Anyway, that's that bit of admin. The other bit is we'll be back again here next week, same time at 3:30 p.m. British summertime still. Of course it is, it's still October. British summertime still. We change the clocks here end of the month. So 11 weeks till Christmas, I believe. Just thought I'd throw that in. The other last bit of admin before we get into this question is that some of you may have already seen that I am running another house healing course. Some of the current participants are on the live stream here. So I'm running a group 3. We've done group 1 and 2. This is starting in November. And if you are interested in becoming a professional house healer, so in other words, using what we learn here and what we touch upon in some of these lives and touch upon in some of the videos, but we go into it in greater depth, using dowsing primarily as the connection to upstairs. If you're interested in using that to help other people and to help others to a greater sense of well-being, then pop over to knightsrose.com, my website. There's a link at the top of the YouTube page. If I had the technical know-how, I'd pop a link in on the live chat, but doesn't matter. I will put one in the comment section below for anybody that's interested. Do check it out. You don't have to be wanting to take that information, that knowledge that you learn and the experience that you gain into a professional capacity, but this course is designed over 10 months to be able to get you to that stage where you basically have a website, or you have the understanding of a website that you can put up, and you are then able to be offering your services, and you get support of the group as well as you do that. So it is an ideal opportunity, and I know that some of you present have actually expressed interest in that, so that's brilliant. I've got a couple of places left on this one, group 3. I've got some people that haven't yet made up their minds, but if you're interested, pop over to that page. We'll have a 30 minutes chat if we can arrange that before the end of the month, and then we'll set that off. We'll be going on the first one of that as a course in November. Anyway, that is, oh, JF, you are a star. I hope you feel better. I hope you are feeling better. So there's a man who had COVID, his entire family. So, but good for him. Good for you, JF. that you're getting over it and getting back on your feet again. And I'm glad your wife is much better too. That was worrying for you. But anyway, there you go. So for anybody that isn't familiar with the format of this live, I'll just take questions. So good, excellent, JF. So there's been a couple of questions that have been sent in. One of them was a comment left last week by a lady called Renee. We'll come to that, and that's the one about the earth energy. There's also a question from Billy. Billy quite often joins us on the live. She may not be able to today, but there you go. So there's one there that I'd like to cover off as well. That one is, actually these are both questions that we've touched on before, but that is the nature of the lives, and it's the nature of the learning too, is that we're inevitably going to cover similar subjects and go over things more than once. But it always helps because sometimes, you pick up something that you didn't catch the first time round, and sometimes obviously there are different people in attendance, and the subscribers are growing all the time on the channel. So it's good to revisit this stuff. Now, I also know that Stuart, who is a regular, I'm going to say he's a regular subscriber. I don't know whether he's a regular subscriber or not, but he's certainly a subscriber and a bit of a fan. He likes to post some of the videos in his group that he runs on Facebook, which is all about earth energy. So I think what I'm going to do is to go into what we might perceive as being some of the basics of earth energy, and then we'll move on to cover off this question that Renee posed. But just to give you the flavor of what we're going to talk about, Renee's question, her comment was this. And now, Renee is a shaman. Is it more harmonious for men and masculine energy to move one way and women the other? So she's looking at earth energy spirals, and she's saying, what she actually said is, I'm experimenting with spirals to move with the energy coming up from the earth and reflecting back from the cosmos. Hopefully Renee is actually on the chat later on, because I'd like some clarification for some of this, but not to worry. Is it more harmonious for men and masculine energy to move one way, in other words, clockwise or anti-clockwise, and women the other? Also, do you think the spiral would have to reverse if you were living in the southern hemisphere as opposed to the northern hemisphere? My intuition has led me to practice spiraling inwards to the right and back out to the left. So in other words, she's saying her intuition has led her to say that the right clockwise spirals are bringing energy inwards, and anti-clockwise ones are distributing it back out or taking it out. But I'm not sure, she says, that would be the same for a man, and might also depend on where you are on the planet. She does then, bless her, say, maybe I'm overthinking all of this, but I would love to know your thoughts before I share this technique with others. Yeah, so, yeah. Maybe I'm overthinking all this. It is very, very easy to overthink all this stuff. And many of you will know, whether you're regulars here or on the house healing course, or we've talked about this before in other circumstances, that so much of this stuff is not strictly put into a rigid framework. So in a way, some of Renee's questions are really asking for, is this the case? Is this the way that it always is? Or is this the way that it always is? And very often with all of this metaphysical and esoteric stuff, is that actually we can't put them into those brackets, into those frameworks, into those cages. So let's just take a couple of steps back and then work our way through into Renee's question, because earth energy, for those that don't know, is absolutely everywhere. Sometimes beginners think, okay, I found an earth energy line, woohoo, there it is. Well, actually, the line that you find is really just a focus, a more intense concentration of earth energy than the surrounding earth energy. So if you had a packet here, and you found a line in the middle, it would just be that actually that is the peak of concentration of of the earth energy. It's not necessarily 3 dimensions, don't think about it like that. But in the same way as, we look at, well, the classic one is the bar magnet, isn't it? And we've talked about this before, where you have a bar magnet, north, south on the bar magnet, iron filings, they sprinkle around, but you shift it around a bit and it'll form the arcs around the magnet. Doesn't mean to say that those lines are just where the magnetism is. That's not true. It's just that is where the magnetism is strongest to pull the filings into shape. So same with earth energy lines. That's where the earth energy itself is the strongest to be pulling the most of it, whatever earth energy is, into shape. Now then, what do we say? Well, we could be a bit radical. As a science warning here, there is no science attached to this. We could be a bit radical and say, well, actually, that's the fabric of reality being pulled into shape with the quantum field of existence. I think that probably is taking a step too far. I don't know, hand on heart, I don't know. Is that the case? I think more likely, what is earth energy? It is more likely to be an geomagnetic electrical field. Now, geomagnetic, obviously, wherever we find electricity, we find magnetism. When you run a electrical current through something, you get a magnetic field around it. What we've got is there's an electrical field on the Earth through space. It creates and spins, and therefore it creates an electrical charge, and there's magnetism associated with the Earth. So when we find Earth energy lines, these are probably, and we have to stick with probably electromagnetic focus lines. That's the blunt explanation. So why do we get so excited about them in this sort of esoteric way, and why do we use them for healing, and what's all that about? Well, they're part of the structure of the reality that we live in. I won't go straight down the rabbit hole as yet, and if anybody wants to ask a question on any subject related to the dowsing and esoteric stuff as we go along, please do so, and we'll pick it up at a convenient place. And I'm aware that with a lot of you regulars, then we're covering off stuff that you will have heard several times before, but let's just carry on with this. One of the great things about earth energy lines, I must have mentioned this before as well, is that if you follow an earth energy line across a field, for example, let's say you found one outside, maybe near a sacred site or something, you found a nice strong earth energy line and you're dowsing it with your rod. What you will find as you walk along that rod is that you take a few paces and actually your rod will bend and you'll find yourself going, if you follow that, you'll go back in a little spiral, and then you'll go on again a few more paces and you'll find another little spiral. And so a line of earth energy, let's make that a bit bigger, a line of earth energy is composed of movements of spirals, and then it goes as a spiral, and it goes another spiral. And so lots and lots of little spirals within an earth energy line, right? And so if you're looking at a space, if you're looking at that field, that's the field that you've been walking through, line going through it, you've got spirals all over the place within that field, spirals of earth energy. Lots of them, they're all together. But when you're following an earth energy line, what you ideally want to do, so that you don't constantly walk around in spirals, in circles, is to just tune into the feeling of that earth energy line, the actual line, the feeling of the line itself, where when you stand there and you feel it, as you will, some of you being more sensitive than others, tune into the feeling of that earth energy line, and that's what you latch onto, and then you'll just follow it without having to go around in all the spirals and circles. So that is then what you're following. You're following that overall vibration, that feeling that you can feel, right, that you're attaching to. So this is one of the things, dear old Hamish Miller, my mentor, he used to get really annoyed when people say, yes, but there's spirals all the way along it. He's like, don't follow the spirals, just follow the line. But he was very good at sort of just focusing in. So really what you're doing when you end up following the spirals is you're actually not being specifically focused enough. However, when most of the time when we talk about spirals, in earth energy. We're not talking about these little constructive ones that are, when I mean constructive, I mean, we're not talking about the ones that make up the lines that create these structures. What we usually talk about when we say, oh, there's a massive earth energy spiral, we're talking about some big vortices, usually at sacred sites or perhaps in a home, that are really making their presence felt. And so these are quite exciting things. There are very, very powerful vortices, massive ones that you can find. And again, in the world, you can find them in the world. And I think in the States, they've got some particularly popular vortices sites, vortex sites. But most of these are earth energy. And the fact is that earth energy comes in all sorts of sizes and shapes and feelings. When we're dealing with the vortex, I've gone into talking about the vortex because vortex is a three-dimensional version of the spiral. When we're dowsing really a two-dimensional surface, because we don't dowse that for third dimension depth. And so when we dowse a vortex, it shows up as a spiral. So when we draw something on a floor plan, or we might be examining a sacred site, we're going to draw a spiral because that's the two-dimensional representation of the three-dimensional vortex. Digsy, hello. Good to see you, mate. Well done. Nice to see you. So, vortex. So most of the time, and this will be what Renee is asking about, is these sort of spirals, vortices that we can find in sacred sites or homes or whatever. Bearing in mind that earth energy is absolutely everywhere. Now, also bearing in mind that dowsing, the results that you get in dowsing are always dependent upon your question, which is the verbalization of your intent. So your intention is what you are looking for. It's what you're looking for. What do you set out to explore? What do you set out to find? You set out to find, in this case, an earth energy spiral. So you douse the spiral and you find that perhaps the spiral that you found is a clockwise spiral. In other words, it's obviously emerging from the smallest point, going to the right, going clockwise, getting larger and larger and larger. Most, I think all earth energy spirals that I have found, and I think this is probably the case for all dowsers, what you will find is that the lines that you dowse, I was going to say trace, but that you dowse, will come from the center in the Fibonacci sequence of expansion. So Fibonacci sequence is the number system, the simple number system at the basis of all natural things, of the natural world. We, as human beings, are made up of ratios of the Fibonacci series. It's the Fibonacci sequence of numbers is something like, I might get this wrong now, I think it's 1 plus 2 is 3. So those are all Fibonacci. And then you've got 3 plus 2 is 5. So that's the next one. 5 plus 3 is 8, is that right? Or 5 plus 2 is 8. Regina, hello. Carol, hello. Nice to see you. Oh, Stevie, nice. Yeah, nice to see you. Great. So if you Google Fibonacci sequence, you'll see, and then what that relates to is the ratio of the lines that you'll find on the spiral as they get further and further out from the center of that spiral. So Renee, let's say, has been dowsing. She's found this clockwise spiral. Now, what she would be doing is, I'm making an assumption. Hello, Margie. Nice to see you. Good. You're on the road. Oh, okay. So she's found this clockwise spiral. And she's obviously working with it in some way. And she's feeling that the clockwise spiral, now does she say, okay, she doesn't say which one she's found is more harmonious for men. So she may well attribute a clockwise spiral, or let's say she attributes this particular clockwise spiral with a masculine energy. Let's say clockwise, let's say it's masculine. Now, all of this energy and all of these spirals that you find, but let's narrow it down a bit. Let's think about a sacred site. Let's think about a stone circle, a Neolithic stone circle. There's always a central spiral. It's not exactly dead center, but there's always a spiral, earth energy spiral, that is found just off center and will expand out. Let's say that's the one we're dealing with, and let's say Renee has found it and she feels that it's a masculine spiral clockwise. Does that mean that she is going to go to another sacred site, find another clockwise earth energy spiral, and that too will automatically be a masculine earth energy spiral? And the answer is no, doesn't mean that at all. Okay. Are we saying that, so therefore what we're saying is that the rotational direction of the earth energy spiral does not correlate independently to a masculine or feminine aspect? Right. Let me just look at these a second. Excellent, excellent, very good. And in fact, I think the autistic gardener is, you can find him on Twitter as well. I think he's quite a good lad. Thank you, JF. That's it, perfect, you got it there, brilliant. Well done, thank you. Hello, Tammy. Lovely, that's great. So, does it mean that one direction is correlating to the male or female? No, it doesn't mean that. Does it mean if you're in one sacred site in Great Britain, for example, and you find a massive clockwise earth energy spiral in the middle of the sacred site, that if you go to another sacred site, you're going to find another clockwise spiral in the middle of it? No, it doesn't. Doesn't guarantee that. It's not written in, excuse the pun, but it's not written in stone. Usually, now, I'm going to put a caveat on this because this is from my memory, and I haven't been out to a lovely stone circle sacred site for a long time. But in all the years that I was dowsing sacred sites, stone circles, I'm pretty damn sure that I was always finding a clockwise spiral in the center of the stone circle. Now, the thing is that, like I said before, there are spirals, earth energy spirals throughout that circle. It's just that as a novice dowser, you don't expect, and therefore your intention is not kind of open to the possibility of finding other spirals. So the most likely one that you're going to bumble into as a new dowser is the main, most powerful one, which is basically the one that sets up the energy of the space. Okay, so as a more experienced dowser, you're going to know that actually there are spirals everywhere, and you will find earth energy spirals spiraling off each individual stone. And each of these spirals is going to have radials, and they all, so they all operate at a sacred site at different levels, slightly different vibrations. And in fact, I'm going to upload Spirit of the Serpent again. JF, I don't want to tire you out, mate, but you might want to do a search on the Spirit of the Serpent Part 1 amongst my videos on the channel. I'm only mentioning that because actually Hamish is dowsing, thank you, is dowsing the stone circle there. And he is talking about this very thing, about the fact that there are lots of spirals and there are lots of radials coming out from those spirals, but they're all at different frequencies, so they don't really interrupt each other. Now, let's get back to Renee's question. I hope you're following this. Renee's first question is it more harmonious for men and masculine energy to move one way and women the other? No, not necessarily. You can find a male or female vortex spiraling either clockwise or anti-clockwise. So don't get too hung up on that. Now, what you will find is that if you go to that sacred site, that men may well find a specific spiral that they find more pleasant to be with, to stand in and to be aware of, and that the women, on the whole, will probably find one just off that, or maybe completely separate to it, that they find more harmonious for them to be with. So on that basis, we would say that the men are standing in the masculine spiral and the women are standing in the female spiral. But again, that's a massive assumption about every one of those people, because there is absolutely no reason why a male human being wouldn't find a female labeled spiral as actually the most harmonious one to be in at that time. And I'm not even saying that that person, that individual, will always find that female energy the most harmonious. They may not. It may just be in the context of three-dimensional space and time that moment the person is resonating most harmoniously with that female energy. Okay. And yeah, I mean, we start to slide down the rabbit hole here, because we come right back to what I'm always going on about, that the dowsing result and the result of what you find as you interrogate earth energy, same as all of the metaphysical stuff, mystical stuff, depends on the context of that information exchange, the context of the moment, which, to somebody that isn't used to that idea and is used to classical physics, becomes a bit at odds with the classical physics, because you should be able to say objectively, that is the case, that is the box I'm going to put that in, that is the label, that is the way it functions. But no, we can't do that, because we can't. Because once we're really diving into the structure of reality and really being aware of what's going on in the inner universe as we explore it in the seeming external world, then we know that a lot of classical physics, classical biology, if you like, as well, doesn't stand up, doesn't hold true. Excuse the dog. Yeah, well, if you ever get back to that trail, Kinney Chris, dowse it, see what you find. See what you find. And again, of course, this is partly where we get fairy circles from, I guess, as well. Right, so let's move on. There's still some other things within Renee's question. Right, so would we have to reverse the spiral if we were living in the southern hemisphere? So in other words, she's gone into the sacred site, found the clockwise spiral. If she was in New Zealand, for example, would she expect, if that sacred site was in New Zealand, would that spiral be reversed? Would it be anti-clockwise? Now, because this question has been asked before, thank you, JF, well done, thank you very much. Put your feet up now, thank you. Because this question has been asked before, I thought, right, let me, oh, thanks, you got them both. Let me do a little bit of looking into this. So I did Google this a little bit, and do you know what? One of the things that came up, because I was I was Googling this general concept that are spirals, like the water flow going down a plug hole, is it reversed on the other side of the world? So in other words, would Digsy down in Oz actually find spirals that were reversed to us if we were finding them up here? So and I ended up on a physics website trying to get more detail than kind of the wiki offers, and this is what that physics website says. Now, this is talking about the Coriolis effect, which is the Coriolis effect is what determines the spiral shape within the wind patterns, so within hurricanes, etc. Coriolis effect is the thing that is generated by the motion of the Earth going round and round and round. I'm not intelligent. I'm only saying Coriolis effect because that's what came up and reminded me of my school days. That's what came up in the Google this morning, in the Google on the internet. So look, this physics site says, under extremely controlled conditions, as were established in the work done in the references on the main page, this can cause water to flow out of a container counterclockwise in the northern hemisphere and clockwise in the southern hemisphere. But what he actually goes on to say is that actually there is water going down a plug hole doesn't necessarily flow in the opposite direction in the southern hemisphere to what it does in the northern hemisphere in real world situations. Now, why is that important? Only because I don't actually know the answer don't know the answer to Rene's question. And I think that I have assumed that on the basis that I assumed that spirals were prone, because of the Coriolis effect, to go in the opposite direction in the southern hemisphere, that would be the case with Earth energy. But I doused this, and I got some very conflicting results, very conflicting answers. And I think this is why it comes back round to, it's not an objective statement that we can make about Earth energy. We can't say that if we had a sacred site and a clockwise spiral in the northern hemisphere, and we took that sacred site and we turned it upside down and put it on the southern hemisphere, that spiral would turn the other way. That cannot be said as holding true. So the point really, no, we're not quite on that point, because let's just go on. The last aspect of Rene's question was her intuition has led her to practice spiraling inward to the right, clockwise going inwards, and back out to the left. I'm not sure that'd be the same for the man, and it might also depend on where you are on the planet. That does seem to be more or less the case. It does seem to be that a clockwise spiral is bringing information down to its point, and an anti-clockwise spiral is taking information up and away from its point. But one of the things to bear in mind is that these spirals, so we go, let's take that as the ground. That's a sacred site. So we've got a sacred site, standing stones wandering around in there, sacred site. Now, you've got a vortex that comes out of the center of that sacred site. But what we believe happens is that it gets to a certain point and then it goes in like this. And then it goes to a certain point and then it goes out again like this. So you get this sort of diagonal sort of shape to Earth energy as it goes upwards, as it raises up. So when we say that energy coming down to the point, vortex coming down, it may well be that we, as human beings, and our system of interpretation is actually generally in agreement that that is what happens, and therefore that is why we say, yeah, that's what happens. But does that make, do you understand what I'm getting at? Billy, don't worry. We start at 3:30, don't worry. So do you understand what I'm getting at though? Because if a vortex is that shape, coming down to the surface of the ground in a sacred site, that shape, we would think that it's, and we would dowse that is coming down, right? And then we would say, well, that's coming down. But then if it's joined to this bit that goes like that, then surely that's going up. Yeah, and exactly. And I think that really what you've got is a system that, whether it's spiraling, whether we dowse it as spiraling clockwise or anti-clockwise, basically it's, just think of it as carrying information. And JF has just raised this DNA. It's the double helix spiral. Now the structure of the DNA double helix is that it spirals, and it spirals to the right fundamentally. But within the DNA helix, within that structure, there are also small structures that actually spiral anti-clockwise. So that's the main structure, the main thread of it spirals clockwise, but there are other structures within a DNA strand that actually spiral anti-clockwise. So I think it certainly doesn't depend on male and female in terms of the human being interacting with the space. What it depends upon, what you find, it depends upon the individual dowser at that moment. Rene does say, maybe I'm overthinking all this. And I think that this is one of the things that we do. We all fall into this desire to want to understand. Excuse me. I really shouldn't do these lives after lunch. We all fall into this desire to understand and to rationalize and to feel, yes, we've got this, we get it, we know what we're doing this right. And actually, you know, we have to allow the fuzziness, we have to allow for margins of error, we have to allow for the fact that even in natural systems, things are not specific and 100% compliant and cast in stone. even in mathematics, apparently. And I thought that mathematics was the only discipline where it could only be right or wrong. Apparently, there's even fuzzy logic within mathematics, which is an area that something can be not quite specific, which is really interesting. So where does this leave the novice dowser, and where does it leave a more experienced dowser? Well, you know, it means actually that the dowsing experience and the working with earth energy is actually even far more exciting and interesting than it would be if we said, well, put it in a cage, put it in that, that's how it is. Because actually every time you're encountering and working with earth energy, and I think this really applies more to perhaps being on site working with it, then there's a whole raft of questions that you can ask about it, and a whole raft of experiences and ways that you can feel your way into that earth energy. But the most important thing about it is that it is the non-physical, as far as possible, connection to your maker, to the energy that you were created from. It is the best possible way of getting a feeling for your spiritual truth, working with earth energy, following it. And I know you might say, well, no, but how does that work? How do you jump from following a line through a field or through a sacred site and relating it to God or the ultimate creator or the universe? Well, because of the nature of what we've discussed before, and the house healing students will know exactly what I'm going to say. The context of the moment, of the experience, of that information exchange, of that all that you are being brought to that moment, in the supposed 3 dimensions of time and space. Because that is the only thing that matters, and what you feel, how you react, what you pick up, what you relay, what you take on board, what you pass on to others in that moment is actually the only thing that matters. Now, that's on the spiritual level, but on a day-to-day basis of a beginner wandering into a circle or looking for the power center at home, you're not interested necessarily in that eternal moment. You're not interested in the importance of that moment. What you're interested in is finding out, where does this go? Does it go through my bed, for example, where I'm sleeping? Is it bad for me? And you can't classify earth energy spirals as being bad, what we would tend to refer to as detrimental rather than bad. You can't classify an anti-clockwise spiral as being detrimental for somebody, and you, in the same way as you can't classify a clockwise one as being detrimental. You will find, if you dowse a floor plan, for example, in the way that we do, then with the way that we do as house healers, that you can often get both types of spiral in a property, both showing up for the individual that you're dowsing for as being detrimental. Okay, so that in itself does not give it the label of detrimental. Kinney Chris, what do we got here? Maybe the spirals have meta waves, expanded and contracted 3D, much larger patterns, and we can follow as earthbound surface dwellers. Yeah, okay, yeah. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, okay, let's just take the spiritual moment for a sec. It might kind of bounce off what you're saying there, Kinney Chris. Your awareness at that point, okay, what you're aware of. I mean, I'm just thinking now, how do I best explain this? And I'm looking directly now at a window. Some of you may have noticed I've changed my desk around since the last live. So my awareness, my senses are telling me that the external world goes out through the window, and I can see trees a couple hundred yards away, and beyond that I can see the other side of the valley. That's probably a mile away, and I can see clouds further away, so they're several miles away. They're all a part of my reality. Now, if I was standing in a sacred site and had doused a spiral, that spiral would be going out to the distance that I can perceive. That is my world, my individual world. That's how important earth energy is, because it's part of the structure of the reality that you perceive to be outside of you, bearing in mind that you is in here all the time. Okay, this is why, don't worry, Jenny, don't worry about it. I don't expect anybody to be necessarily here on time all the time. It's nice to have anybody that turns up and goes off, doesn't matter. Nice to see you, Jen. So this again is one of those things, and it is like a wave-like pattern. As the Fibonacci spiral goes out in those peaks, you've actually got a wave-like pattern as well as going upwards in this, what we define as this sort of shape. But this sort of shape will go finer and finer and finer and finer and finer. And this is what I'm saying, is that the sensitivity, if you could dowse it, it would be incredibly difficult to dowse the very edges. If I were trying to dowse the edge of a spiral a couple of miles away, well, it wouldn't, because my boundary would be constantly, expanding. It's tell you what it's like, right? In the old days of computer games. Oh, good. Okay, Tammy, great. I'm glad that clicked in. In the old days of computer games, when my son would play on something like Zelda or GoldenEye, let's say the Bond thing, right? The computer processing, the packaging was so poor at that time, is that you'd literally see the character running through the landscape and things would be forming as they were running. And this is what this is like. That's what this is like, is that it's constantly forming, or we may think of it as being constantly forming. We may relate to it as being, our reality is constantly forming around us, each one of us, as being a separate vibration to everybody else. Okay? Thanks, Billy. Thanks for that. Actually, JF, you've been great at picking up these links. Can I just ask you, could you pop over to my website and just put in the house healing course, just in case anybody that's watching on playback has got this, the house healing course, it's in the surprise, surprise, workshops and courses. Drill down, and then there's a 2020 part 3 thing, if you don't mind. Excellent. Thank you, Billy and JF, for doing that. It really, really is helpful. Very, very lovely. Right, let's move on to Billy's question, bless her, because we've spent a long time talking about Renee's question, partly because it's incredibly important. Now, actually, just before we move on to Billy's question, stand by. Some of you that maybe have doused earth energy more frequently than others. Thank you, JF. That's the house healing course. Fantastic. Lovely. Thanks, Billy. Yeah, some of you a bit more experienced at dowsing earth energy. You will have come across a shape, sacred shape, which is 3 spirals together. So 1, 2, and a third one on top is usually how it's put together, how it's shown. It's called a triskelion. Triskelion, yeah, it's great. That's what it is. Triskelion, triple spiral. And it's the sort of shape that was you quite often find in Celtic sort of sacred places carved into stones and things. But often what you'll find in that triskelion, in the 3 spirals, and they're right next to each other, the shown's being right next to each other, is that like the Celts, yeah, like the Celts, is that actually 2 of them are anti-clockwise spirals, shapes, and one of them is a clockwise. So they, in that symbol, are representing both aspects. I guess we could go yin and yang. So yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to mention that triskelion. If you ever dowse a house, for example, there's you that are on that course, and find the 3 spirals, you don't necessarily, you might dowse it incorrectly, but if you find 3 spirals that are absolutely right next to each other, the chances are that actually you've got a property that's been built on an old sacred site, because these earth energy spirals like that, in that format, are very, very, very not quite, Tom, are very, very significant of sacred sites. Hamish used to wear a different pendant. He wore, no, what Hamish wore was interweaving earth energy lines, and I believe it was the sorry, yeah, what did it's not the Triskelion. It is a really sacred symbol, and I've completely forgotten what it looked like. Yeah, you would know, but I've completely forgotten. It's not the Triskelion. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'll get on to Billy's question. Excuse me, sorry about that. My brain has gone. So, I'm not going to read all of Billy's question. So, stand by with the caduceus. Caduceus, yes, that's right. That's exactly right. Exactly right. Yeah, it's like the medical symbol thing, but it's not quite that. So the caduceus is what's been adopted by the medical profession, certainly in the UK. But yeah, anyway, thanks, Kenny Chris. Thanks, JF. Yes, you would have done. Yes. It is a wonderful book. Do pick it up from Amazon. I don't have any copies myself personally, but do pick it up from Amazon. So, oh, okay. Well, let's not go there. So, right, Billy. Billy's core question is about using dowsing boards, so dowsing charts with a pendulum. And at what point does that whole process go from being really safe into verging on Ouija board territory? Now, some of you will remember that we talked about Ouija boards last year, I think it was last year, it might have been earlier this year. And I don't recommend really that anybody, I don't recommend that anybody actually uses Ouija boards. But the main reason for me not recommending that people use Ouija boards is primarily because of the process in which the Ouija board is used. Because usually what happens with Ouija boards is that it's done as a bit of a laugh, bit of a giggle, and people are, it's usually youngsters, are usually doing it in they're usually drunk or whatever, having a good time, and they do it as a bit of a joke, and they do it in a group. But of course, what they're doing is actually, if they're getting anywhere near doing it properly, is that they are actually accessing subtle energies that are, as we know, they're actually quite powerful. So, and as soon as you sit in that sort of group format, you're opening your chakras to everybody else in the group. So not only are you opening yourself, usually without any protection when they use Ouija boards, psychic protection, but you're not only opening yourself to any passing nonsense that might want to go and have a look at whatever this is that's open and got this little light on saying, hello, I'm here in the etheric realm, but also you're opening your auric field to the auric field of everybody else around the table. Now, that'll be fine if you get on with everybody and you know everybody really well, because you're going to walk home with some of their baggage. And that's the main reason that I say don't open up with a Ouija board. But Ouija, you can also get into the whole issue of trickster spirits, which is what I meant by some of the wandering, passing things. But you can also scare the bejesus out of yourself anyway by using them if you don't know what you're doing. So now, every time I've mentioned Ouija boards, there's always somebody, and it's fine, there's always somebody that says, yes, but I used it and I found it very helpful. And that is absolutely fine. If there are individuals that do it and they like it and they're using it in a sensible way and they know what they're doing when they're using it, that is fine. I haven't got a problem with that person carrying on using it. I don't like them, and I don't recommend to anybody that they use them. So let's look at Billy's question, because actually what Billy is actually concerned about is creating a situation where she is accidentally encountering the wandering, mischievous aspects. Thanks, Jeff. It's brilliant with all the links, mate, but do take it easy as well. I'm not expecting you to fill the chat with links. It is wonderful that you're doing it, but I want you to also enjoy it. And also, you're probably not fully 100% yet. So chill. Thank you very much for doing it, though. I'm not having a go. I'm just saying I want you to relax. Unless you really enjoy it, then you carry on. So yeah, the big issue here is actually about if you add the alphabet and stuff to a page, is that actually turning it into a Ouija board, because it then starts to look like one? And the answer is actually, as Billy has worked through herself towards the end of this question, is that no, it's not dangerous, because it is all about the intention. Okay, excellent. Sorry, you guys. Tammy's, yeah, great. So Billy, yeah, it's a really good question, a really, really good question, because if you look at a dowsing chart, there's a dowsing chart, and that's fine, and you'll find all sorts of different ones. And then you look at a Ouija board, you think, oh, well, hang on, there's similarities there. What's the difference? Well, do bear in mind that actually Ouija boards that are sold as Ouija boards have an intention from the manufacturing process, from whoever's made it into, oh, this is a Ouija board, oh, people are going to have fun with this, oh, you can do all sorts of magic with this. Now, magic is not something that I am keen on. I'm not keen on what we would call real magic, because magic is us as human beings basically saying, right, I'm going to use some of this creative force in the subtle realms to do what I want to happen. And I'm going to command these things. I'm going to command these elementals to do such and such. Or I'm going to make this person's life difficult, blah, because I'm going to do this deliberately with intention and use the magic of ceremony. And right, that's not what we're about. As house healers, that's not what we're about. What we talk about here is to try to bring working with the creative subtle energies so that we can bring peace, well-being and harmony into our lives, not using it as an added extension in a sort of a Harry Potter, let's have a wizard battle type way, or even the ancient shamans of any of the indigenous cultures. Bless them. There was a really good book about the Mayan civilization written by archaeologists, but they had a spiritual aspect to them, these archaeologists. And they were talking about the way that it would appear. There's evidence that shamanic traditions in the Mayan culture meant that you would have shamans battling each other. So literally battling in spirit form, battling with the energies of creation and trying to figure out who was the better shaman, but who was the stronger shaman, dealing with soul battles, right? I mean, that is like, whoa, why would you do that? So we're not working with that energy. We're working, everything that we do is in alignment with divine will. And when Billy is sitting to dowse and ask questions, then she is doing it with the best possible intent to want to connect to those people that she wants to connect with on the other side, to departed ones. So her connection is pure in that sense. So it doesn't matter what the physical, dowsing sheet is. If Billy, if you want an alphabet on, you want other sort of useful things on it, then go for it, do it, use it. Your intention and your position and your vibration is what will give you the connection in each moment. And you are doing all the good protection. You are of what we might say is of good heart, which is a strange expression, but your heart is focused. You want your heart to be focused in the right place for good. Everything you're doing is for the greatest good and for the highest of the high. You're not doing things out of a selfish motivation. You're not influencing anybody else's life. You're doing your own thing. You just want to be safe as you do your dowsing and find answers. And that is absolutely fine. No problem about that at all. Okay. So hopefully, Billy, that answers your question. Screen freeze. Screen freeze. It's like brain freeze. So, we're going to round off in 5 minutes or so. Any questions? Any questions from the floor? Any questions from the earth energy? I hope that's made sense, and I hope my earth energy answer wasn't kind of like so rambling that you've all nodded off. and hopefully we covered a little bit of new ground for the regulars in that earth energy thing. Oh yeah, okay. You want to touch on COVID? I don't really want to touch on the COVID situation. Yeah, okay, that's okay. I think we got there, but I think yeah, I'm hoping you'll find that sensible. I think, Billy. Right, there's so much we can use COVID-19 as a way to reinforce our beliefs, and no matter what our belief system is, that will, COVID-19, the whole scenario will find an avenue to connect our beliefs into what we perceive the situation to be. Yes. I mean, Keith, the intensity, by that I think you mean power. We'll come back to COVID-19 in a second. By the power of the spiral, right? What it does is your connection to the spiral will wind it up. It'll increase the power. That we measure the power in the straight line radials coming out of the Jasper. Thank you. Of the power center, right? So you measure a spiral at rest. It might be half a dozen radials, straight lines coming out of it. You focus with it, charge it, in other words, in that sense, by your presence and your heartfelt emotion, your positive vibes that you're sending as you send love to that space, the radials count will increase. And when you sorry, I'll come back to that in a second, Billy. Do you mean our? Oh, I don't know the 7 p.m. nightly group meditation energy. Right. So, have you got any more? What do you mean, Billy? Which one do you mean? Did we used to do one? We didn't used to do one. I do one on Mondays once a month. Right, Keith. Sorry, let's answer your question. I got split across two subjects here. So tune in, find your energy spiral at home, count the radials at rest, right, and then count them once you've meditated with it and see how much they've increased. The more you do that, then the more the resting spiral will be pulsing away, waiting for your interaction. So it's like a neural connection. It's once it's activated and got going and knows you're there, then the radial count will remain higher, and it'll just keep increasing, right? And this is why sacred sites have a lot of radials, because they've been used in ceremony over a long time. Obviously, over time, if it was used in 2000 BC, like a lot of them were, then over time, over the 4,000 years since, then the energy of the place just naturally starts to ebb and subside. It doesn't take much to bring it back to life. I do what I do is we have a little meditation group. Anybody's welcome to join. I do charge a little fee for it. It's once a month on a Monday, first Monday of each month. We've got about 15 or so people in that group, and we've been it's a general healing and meditation group. So sometimes, we include everybody in the group in a healing, and everybody that they want to mention in the healing. We have a little chit chat, and we do a meditation. Meditations have been really quite lovely, and we will be pulling that out into a private Facebook group in due course as well. If anybody wants to join, again, nip over to I don't think I've got a link. I don't think you're going to find a link, JF, on my website. I'll put one in the comments beneath this for that again. And if anybody else wants to join the group, that's fine. So, Billy, coming back to that was that. Keith, we talked about the Earth energy spiral. It is fascinating stuff. Don't get, as a house healer, don't get wound up by it. Dowse and find out what you're after. And just communicate with it, Keith. Work with it, and just lay back. Jasper, you're making so much noise, mate. Goodness me. Yeah, just chill into it and see what you feel within the earth energy. That's the main thing about earth energy. You just want to be aware that it's there and that it's part of your experience of being alive in this 21st century, and see what you can do. Oh, you found it. Oh, okay. Well done. Didn't know I got it there. Well done. Excellent. Thanks, Jay. Any other last questions? I know we got some. Oh, Tammy. Okay. Don't know. No, it should all be there. Tammy, not sure what's going on with your computer there. Okay. Well done. Thanks. Thanks, you two. Thanks, Billy and Jay. You've done really well. Any other last questions from anybody? Has that, I don't know whether that was the earth energy thing. Did that make sense? Did that make sense? Is there any questions about earth energy that anybody wants to ask? Okay, bye, Carol. Take care. See you next week, perhaps. I'm quite happy to sit here and wait for. That's all right, Billy. Happy to answer anybody's questions. And if there's a last one, then we'll go. Okay. Stay well, can you, Chris? I'm quite happy to just sit for a couple of minutes. Laura, you made it all the way through. Well done, you. Well done, you. Hopefully you kind of picked some stuff up that was helpful. Take care. That's fine. Thanks, Jenny. So, okie dokie. All right. So I think we'll call it a day then. And yeah, do leave a question. You're not going to throw the Vesica Pisces in there right on the end. There is a chat here next week, same time. Tornadoes, Bermuda Triangle. Oh, Bermuda Triangle. Well, yeah, that's an interesting one, isn't it? Thanks. Good. Excellent. Take care, Tom. Patty, all right. I'll try and I'll make a note of that. I'll have a look back at the end of the chat when it gets online. Thanks, Sally. Cool. Take care. We'll see you next week, 3:30, same place. Leave some comments and leave some questions in those comments too. I can do a little bit of prep for you if you like. Okay. Thanks, JF. I'll see you soon, mate. Looking over there, a bit sharp. I'm seeing you on Wednesday. Fantastic. Thanks, Stevie. Thanks, Patty. Nick, you made it all the way through as well. Take care. Excellent. Okay. All right, cool. Going to press the buttons. Thanks. And do remember, if you like to click the thumbs up under the doodle, it's very helpful to let YouTube know that people appreciate what we're doing here. All right. Take care, guys. See you next week. Bye-bye.